and welcome to the Packaging Europe live broadcast on our new virtual platform. Today we'll be exploring the big question: how can you ensure your supply chain is fit for the future? This is a crucial time to explore and reinforce supply chains, especially from a sustainability perspective. And the coronavirus pandemic has highlighted just how essential a holistic approach to producing your packaging is, from the beginning to the end of life. I'm pleased to introduce our two guest speakers of the day. We have Tracy Sutton, who is founder and lead consultant at Root. They work with global FMCG brands on environmental analysis and strategy, and deliver environmental business strategy to packaging suppliers to future-proof sustainable growth. Hi, Tracy.
Good morning, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks.
Great. And we also have Sophie Kieselbach, who is Senior Consultant from Sphera, formerly ThinkStep, which through its portfolio of software, data and consulting expertise aims to lead organisations to sustainable success. Thanks for joining us, Sophie.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi. So for our audience joining us today watching on YouTube, we hope to have some time at the end of this to answer your questions. So please submit your questions through the chat function. We're also joined today by Carlos Musitu, who is Business Development Engineer, and Alfredo Glaria, Export Sales for Europe. And they're from Valco Melton, who are specialists in adhesive dispensing systems. Hi both.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we also have Johannes, Schwarz, who is Sales Director at Müller. They're experts in blow molding technology, and altogether they'd like to share with you some sustainable inspirations from across the packaging supply chain that you would have been privy to had interpack not been postponed.
Hello.
Hi, thanks for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
Great. So it's a shame we won't be seeing you all at interpack at the moment. How have your companies been coping and adapting during this crisis, especially when it comes to managing your supply chain?
Well, in our case, in the case of Valco Melton, as a supplier of essential industry as food and beverage, medical or pharma, we didn't stop. We didn't stop any day. But it's true that obviously we had to adapt the factory to the new regulations of the coronavirus. And regarding interpack, you said it's a real shame for us to can't go this year to interpack, but at least our marketing department has made a great job, and they create a virtual tour of interpack of Valco Melton, trying to show to our customer the same range of products, or the same solution that we will in theory we had in interpack, right? It's available in our website. That is not the same for sure. We will go there next year, but it's something to show to our customer.
Yeah, definitely. And Johannes, how has it affected you at your
company? Of course, as any other companies, we have done home office as much as possible, especially sales, marketing are all in the home office. But as we have an in-house production, we could not do this on the production side, so we had to make some measurements there as well, and wearing masks and organizational measures at separating groups of assembly, and also for small items like that the people are coming already with their production clothes on and do not have to use their changing rooms. So these are a lot of effects we have installed or we are facing. But in general, we are quite running well. We are in full production, and we always try to support our customers who are producing the bottles and other materials, and then switching everything what we can to online tools, like also the troubleshooting, the support, and of course any questions. We are also preparing webinars for our customers to go in a teaching mode and to explain in detail the technical things of our products. So.
Thank you both. So back to the big debate we're focusing on today. Sophie was due to give a talk at the Life Without Packaging Forum, which was set to be held at Interpack, and she's keen to share her insights with us today. She believes that it's crucial that supply chains in packaging are embedded in a sustainability strategy, and also that they remain embedded throughout this crisis. If you don't know your supply chain and the risks within it, you're not fit for the future, she argues. And Tracy is able to provide some more thoughts with regard to framing this within the coronavirus pandemic and the opportunity this presents in rethinking the packaging industry's future approach. So here at Packaging Europe, we actually shared a survey with the industry to discover the wider implications of the COVID-19 pandemic. And within this, we asked what the longer term impact of the pandemic on packaging they envisaged. Interestingly, 34% stated that for supply chain traceability, they were expecting more demand from consumers. So Sophie and Tracy, I'd like to ask you today, do you think we're on the cusp of change when it comes to sourcing responsibly along the supply chain?
Well, so if I can start and then maybe ask, it'd be interesting to hear for Sophie's perspective. For us, in terms of timing, we've got three types of client. We've got the global guys most of them have already got a responsible sourcing strategy in place. They've had it for a long time, and a lot of them have made relatively recently commitments to science-based targets, and that's where we do most of the strategy work. Then we've got the international brands that are looking to globalize. I think that this is absolutely where we are at the crux point for those guys, in terms of this is the great time for them to get their strategy right before they grow, before they scale. The same principle for converters as well. And then the third type of client for us is packaging converters. So this is where I think that we've got the biggest opportunity for leadership, but also where we've got a long way to go, because I think that in general, packaging converters don't know as much as they should about where their materials come from and about responsibility throughout their supply chain. And I think that if you're converting fossil fuels, or if you're producing packaging that's not widely recycled, your customers absolutely need to know the basics about the kind of metrics that an LCA, for example, would cover off in terms of water waste and the other plethora of things that in terms of responsible supply chain. So my perspective is that it shouldn't take as long as it does to extract the data that's needed for an LCA. It can often be quite a painful process. And what that means to me is that we don't know enough about our supply chains, and we need to have that information at our fingertips. Be interesting to hear your experience, Sophie.
I also think it's not about, I agree with everything you said, Tracy, and I also have to say that it is not about customers' perception at that point. It's about your own ability of yourself to be able to trace your entire supply chain, because if you cannot identify that, you're also not able to mitigate any risks in time, and you are just able to react whenever something happens or a shortage happens. And it's in your own interest to increase your traceability, regardless of what customers demand it or not. So it's just in your own interest to be fit for the future. And if you don't do it, you're just having higher risk in your whole portfolio. So it's about self-care at that point, I think.
Yep, I agree. Yeah.
So really, the more knowledge you have, kind of the more stable you can be as a company, kind of going into the future.
Absolutely, yeah. It's about ensuring that your business is relevant and resilient in a world where we've got less and less resources and more people. You need to have an understanding of not just where and how your materials are extracted, but how much of them you're using as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I understand more businesses are starting to take a more holistic approach when it comes to packaging. How important is it that life cycle analysis is considered within an approach?
Yeah, I say it's very important. Actually, at Sphera, we think that life cycle analysis should be as important as evaluating like other indicators such as safety, user friendliness, and so on. It should be like a standard indicators you have in your set when you decide what packaging you're using, because we just have to be clear that our environmental challenges are still there. They didn't disappear, unfortunately, overnight. And if you don't, know your numbers, you are at higher risk. It's as important as knowing your costs. And we also have seen throughout different studies we have done in the last years that, for example, circular packaging doesn't mean that it is always the best environmental solution, that your gut feeling doesn't mean that it is the best solution. So customer perception not always lead down the right path. So numbers should be your best friend when you're trying to be environmental friendly and circular and recyclable. And that is also why we released, for example, the Gabi packaging calculator, where you combine all the calculation of these indicators for a full picture. So I would see it as a state-of-the-art instrument to analyze what you're doing. Yeah, so I see it as a very important tool in your measurements.
Yeah, I'd agree, and I think for us it's very much about having an evidence base, but also understanding the challenges in the relevance and when and where to use LCAs, because in some instances going straight into an LCA for us is overkill for some of our clients. So for us, while LCAs cover a lot of metrics, they're not. We don't feel they're a completely holistic solution in themselves. So for us, we've got our design for life approach, which has got 3 different levels, and we use metrics in one of them because we found that actually having a simpler approach without necessarily going into streamlined LCAs is potentially sort of quicker and easier. The exception is obviously when you do need hard data and hard facts around carbon, if there's no other or other metrics, if the business doesn't have them. The challenges for us are around that the LCAs don't necessarily cover off things that are more around responsibility and people impacts, and also doesn't necessarily reflect the realities and challenges of global waste management, which is, and for a long time, will be a really big challenge, I think.
So it really depends,
I mean, as this is always the case, every methodology has its borders, has a certain dead end, that's clear. Of course, you also have to think about resources as a whole, about if you go from, for example, plastic to paper, is there enough material in the future and stuff like that. So of course you have to think above that. Yeah, but I think the only method right now for us available, which is based on numbers, is the life cycle assessment. And if you really are deciding on something, I would always say you have to trust a life cycle analysis, otherwise you might go in the wrong direction. And that would be actually a pity if you put that much effort in designing a new sustainable packaging or taking it very serious, but then you go in the wrong way just because you didn't know your numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, and just one final thing to add to that, I think we've had instances where people have carried out an LCA, but they haven't had the support. So obviously, Sophie, the work that we do is we give that perspective. So it's about understanding how, where, when, and why you're doing an LCA and what you're looking to get out of it, rather than potentially getting. I suppose what I'm trying to say is it needs to be in the right hands, really, and you need to understand how and what to do with the data that comes out of it as well.
Yeah, I agree on that. Yeah.
Great, thank you both. So the next question, due to the pandemic, we've noticed that at end of life there's been some recycling challenges for certain materials, such as collection rates dropping, and we've also received reports of material shortages at the root of the supply chain. How can we collaborate as an industry to ensure current circular models are circular in practice? And does this whole pandemic make us ponder the question of how we interpret circular economy principles?
I might start on that. So for me, I think and Sophie touched on it earlier around the fact that a circular pack or recyclable pack might not actually be environmentally as good as something that goes to energy energy from waste, for example. For me, what we think are circular models are actually quite far down the waste hierarchy. So I think what's happened is that in our interpretation of the circular economy model is that we've interpreted that model in a very disposable way. So we've all got business models that are set up around disposability and circularity, but it's still disposable. So you always end up still with degradation. And this current situation with COVID is a really great example of where the model of disposability is broken, because we can't get that material back. The pressures on the waste management industry are so great, and the priorities are needing to be managed so differently, and they will be sort of upside down. I think I quote somebody for a little while. It's a really good example of actually where the current way that we use and dispose of packaging is broken. That model doesn't work. You know, some packs have been lightweighted so far down the line that we're trying to make packaging that was never really designed to be recyclable, multi-materials, and we're doing so much to invest in infrastructure that actually we're going in the wrong direction. So for me, this whole sort of situation is a really good example of when there's never been a better time to reconsider the way that we use resources, and to question, just to remember the fact that there's only a certain number of resources on the planet, and we need to be really careful about how we use them. And the challenges on the waste management industry, and let alone the environment, of course, I should say, and the impact that's happening where poorly managed waste is turning up in parts of the world where up to 1 million people are dying because of mismanaged waste. That's what we need to get to the root of. That's the problem, and that's absolutely why we can talk about collaboration, but I think we need to talk about sort of serious investment and people really giving some consideration as to how they pivot their business models now, or absolutely start opening your eyes to looking at what that might look like in the future.
Yeah, I also would say one problem in this whole circularity discussion, to say so, is that we tend to start to think about recycling first and forget about all the other circles which are possible in this whole circular economy model, such as reuse and stuff like that. And also what I can see is that there's still politics and the industry is having problems to solve the whole recycling problem along the chain. It's still a gap in where the discussions are, and there are so many gaps which are also unknown, where one is not talking to the other. So I think we have still to work a lot more on making new partnerships, thinking in networks, thinking in the big picture and not in your single line. And that's actually the big problem, and also that we are not solving the problem itself. We are shifting the problem, then we're solving something different, because maybe the actual problem is too big. I actually don't know, but I'm questioning myself a lot of times why we are not concentrating on the actual problem instead of shifting it to somewhere else. So I agree with Tracy again.
and I think just one final point on that, I think that I'd love to see a new generation of packaging designs that reflect the resource scarcity that is around the corner, or that we're living with now. What we're trying to do, completely agree with Sophie, is that we're essentially kind of walking quite blindly, throwing millions into trying to retrofit complex structures into a fragmented and inconsistent global recycling system, and that's never going to work, and we all know it, but we're trying to do it. We're trying to make it better. A lot of these, there's lots of really great work that has been going on, without a doubt, throughout the industry, and lots of people were working very hard, but I think we're working on the wrong problems. We're trying to fix the way that we're doing something rather than actually rethink it. But when you talk to somebody about disrupting their business model, it gets a bit scary and a bit overwhelming, and that's the reason why we're still going down the same path we're doing, but just trying to do it a little bit better.
Yeah, exactly. Because the fear of really changing business models is, of course, it's a higher risk. But on the long term, actually, I think if you haven't done that now or in the next few years, you're actually, or anyways, in the risk of losing your business in the future. Maybe not short term, but in the middle or long term, that might happen.
Absolutely, yeah. When we're talking globally,
that's Yeah, and that's what you have seen also in the COVID-19 crisis right now. You see how fast it can happen that whole businesses disappear just because of one single event. And that's why I really think that it has the whole environmental discussion has to be part of your strategy, of your whole business strategy.
Absolutely.
Can we still really trust this is the answer to our future when it comes to sustainability, the models that we're working on at the moment? You've kind of mentioned that companies are sort of taking small steps in the right direction rather than having a massive change to their models.
I think is the economics that's the big driver, is that it's quite difficult to put none of us are paying the financial cost of running our business. We're not paying the financial cost of using a single-use plastic bottle. We're not paying the financial cost of using a single-use aluminium can. Whatever the material is, we're only paying the part of the cost. So it's difficult to do a comparison to say, well, actually, it seems to be doing okay how we're running our business at the moment. If someone was able to pull together a very positive case study and pull together the financial, the business case for a less just disposable business model, essentially, that's where I think that we would get the answer. But that's where lots of people are being a bit cagey and not sharing very much information, because I don't think a lot of people have done that work, to be fair.
Yeah, one of the big misconceptions of our whole thinking, I think, is that we do as if nature is providing us with everything for free, and we are not recognizing that this is actually not true, and that everything is organized in circles, which are also connected to each other as well, and we don't even know how these circles are functioning fully. I mean, I studied ecology, and I know that we don't know that much, and still we're doing as everything was for free and not interconnected to each other. And as long as we don't get that out of our mind, if you're doing business, we will fail. Anyway, that sounds a little bit dramatic, I know, but from an ecological point of view, that is the case, actually.
And I think for me, I couldn't agree more. And I think that I sometimes get frustrated in not understanding why there's less action on a business level. You know, there are a lot of big global brands and a lot of the big packaging converters who are doing quite a lot, but there's still a huge chunk of society that seem to be going on as in terms of business as usual, and not recognizing that this is less about sweeping something under the carpet. I think if you're still sweeping sustainability under the carpet as a business topic, then you absolutely are going to be in trouble. It's really, this for me is all about reframing it as a business opportunity. Whether you're whatever type of business you have, this is about future-proofing your business. And if we're all business owners, probably most of us, or many of us speaking today, and if you're as passionate about having a business and staying in business as I am, I would want to be doing everything I could to understand actually what's my business going to look like in 5 years or in 10 years, and this COVID situation that we're living in at the moment is a really great example of how quickly things can shift and how quickly we can look back and go, oh, well, if only we had done X, Y, and Z. So yeah, it is a good example of how things can change very quickly.
Yeah, so I think now that it's definitely at the forefront of a lot of companies' minds at the moment, their future viability, is now a good time to be going back to the start and framing this within the pandemic.
For me, yeah, I think that there's never been a better time to reset. There are some clients or some businesses that are being forced to, they can't do very much, but they're from a business level, and people are working in the offices on more strategic work. Some of them are being able to reframe what they're doing when they do it. So there's never been a better time to set out, to a clear plan for the future, to future-proof the business. I think if you use fossil fuels and your system or your products or your packaging produces waste, you therefore have an inherent risk. Waste is a business risk, it's a brand risk, and that needs to be mitigated alongside transforming that, actually, as I said, into a journey to turn risk into a brand opportunity and competitive advantage. And that opportunity is out there. It's not all doom and gloom. Yes, it's hard and it can be a difficult path, and you might need to invest a bit, but when you come out the other side, you'll be incredibly thankful that you have done.
Yeah, I also would just state one thing here is that please never forget that your packaging is always dependent on what you're producing. So no product, no packaging. That's something which is sometimes forgotten in that whole discussion. If you're looking at life cycle analysis, it's always most of the time it's actually the product itself which has the highest impact, and that's why we also do packaging. We are not doing packaging because it's fun. We're doing packaging because we want to provide protection and safety for our products. And that's something we also have to keep in mind. And maybe if you now are starting again thinking about your strategy, take that a little bit more in the whole discussion. If you already have a strategy in place, that's perfect. Now you can check how resilient it is, your approach. And if not, I think it's high time to start now. It is about time. If you don't do it now, yeah, I can't tell that more than please do it now. It's crucial. It's actually crucial for your future.
Great, thank you both for sharing your insights with us in this discussion. You've highlighted some really vital points there. Following on from this overall discussion, I'm pleased to introduce you to one of the finalists from our Sustainability Awards 2019. Valco Melton entered with its environmentally friendly solution called EcoStitch. So adhesives are a key factor within the packaging supply chain that can ensure a more holistically environmentally friendly solution. And Valco Melton has some innovative ideas that can change from certain more conventional methods that are today still applied in the supply chain. So Carlos, I'd like to ask you firstly a little bit more about your innovation, EcoStitch.
Well, because this is the Valco Melton solution for food and beverage packagers and end-of-the-line packaging. Is the idea of using all-electric hot melt gluing technology instead of the standard pneumatic solution, right? So we combine electric hot melt units, gear pump units in this case, with electric hot melt guns. With EcoStitch, we are able to reduce the adhesive usage from 35 to up to 75%. Eliminating also the compressed air in the configuration, in the complete configuration, and reducing a lot the downtime in the packaging line. So basically, with EcoStitch, we are offering to our customers the possibility to get a huge saving in terms of saving of adhesive, parts, and production downtime.
How specifically can it reduce adhesive usage in the packaging industry? How does it work?
Basically, because with the EcoStitch configuration, EcoStitch solution, we are able to apply precision dots of adhesive in place of the typical and the standard traditional line, right? For sure, keeping or in many cases even improving the bond quality in the packaging box. To make this possible, we need to combine our electric guns with the Valco Melton electric drivers. With these drivers, we can control the volume of the adhesive. We can program the size of the dots, the gap between the dots. So we can control everything with the driver instead to have to change the diameter of the nozzles, the changing nozzles in order to get different sizes of the dots. No, with the same material, with the same driver, with the same gun and nozzle, we can apply dots of 1 millimeters, dots of 5 millimeters. Doesn't matter, okay? And also at the beginning, it's not only a save of adhesive. I mentioned also a huge saving in parts and in production downtime. This is because with the using of the EcoStitch solution, customer can work with lower pressures, with larger nozzle diameters, which means that, for instance, we can avoid typical problems in packaging and the line packaging of clogged nozzles, right? And also it's very important to mention that in the modules of the electric guns internally, in the electric guns we have fewer moving parts. I mean, fewer seals are moving internally in the modules of the electric guns, which makes that we can get a life cycles of over 2 million of cycles. That, in my personal opinion, this is a spectacular performance.
And Alfredo, can you tell me a bit more about your focus within the palletizing industry? How can you add value by removing or reducing other materials?
Yeah, the main added value is really on our customers' objectives. Today, more than ever, all and every customer has an objective of reducing costs, okay? And second, and more specific, some of our customers, they have objectives of reduction of plastic usage. And regarding palletizing, the reduction of the stretch film, okay, the plastic film that we wrap the pallets with. Some of our customers, for example, they have the objective of reducing by 50% the usage of this plastic in 3 years. Some of them, they have a zero waste objective, no plastic usage. So our added value and our great solution is that, reducing costs and especially also reducing plastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what alternatives do you provide to traditional case wrapping?
The alternative that we do, and this is our solution, is instead of using for making pallets, using the middle liners in between the pallet layers and using the stretch film, the solution is to glue the boxes together, okay? We use a special glue that is not going to be damaging the product. And most important, it's also, it has the capability of undo the pallets and remake them, just in case you need to do some kind of pickup or any need. So the solution is quite straightforward. It's nice, and it's just about gluing the boxes instead of using all this material that at the end is useless. It's just for protection and stability. And with the solution, we give the exact same stability, but zero waste, which is great. Yeah.
And can your solution be applied to all types of product format?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely, yes. Of course, this solution can be applied to customers palletizing boxes, palletizing bottles, no matter if they come in trays or with shrinkable film. And also it's suitable for palletizing sacks of cement, flour, pet food, whatever it is. So our solution can be fully adapted to all kinds of customers. And this is one of the great features that not only, of course, of the reduction of cost and plastic, but also it can be adapted to all kinds of packaging, which is great.
My next question is for both of you. Can the electric solutions be applied to all packaging lines?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Thanks to our modular design, our multi-modular configurations, it's very easy to adapt the ecosystem solution to all the existing lines or new lines. I mean, it doesn't matter if the existing configuration is it's a Valco Melton configuration or it's a configuration of our competitors. So we can adapt our guns, our modules, our drivers for all the existing lines. Yeah.
Yeah. And regarding the palletizing solution, yes, we can also adapt it to any existing line, because we just need a small bridge bracket to place our guns, and there is no major modifications on the lines. It's a standalone solution, so we just can, I mean, there's not even need to stop production in order to apply the solution. Yeah, so.
Okay, so it's not necessary to modify the configuration.
No, we just have to look for the right place to install our equipment, and that's it. But that, as I said, no major modifications and no stop of production.
And in the ecosystem solution, basically the same. We have different options. We can change only the guns, replace only the existing guns, put in our electric solution with the drivers, or if customer needs to change the complete configuration, for sure we can change everything. So we have our gun conversion option, changing only the hot melt guns, or we can replace the complete configuration with the melter, the hot melt unit, the hoses, and the guns. Basically, it's here where we have more possibilities to offer to our customer, because our complete range for packaging products is so big. We have complete units with auto feeder system, units with no tank melt on demand units, the standard one. So basically, as in the EcoStitch solution and in the palletizing, we have many options in order to achieve the customer requirements.
And another question for both of you again. What important savings do your solutions have in terms of money and adhesives? Kind of how much can we save, and what's the return on investment?
Okay. Well, the best to explain this question is to give an example. And for example, one of our customers, okay, doing bottles of juice, they are making around 12,000 pallets per year. And for this customer, the savings could be around 100,000 euros, okay? For giving a rough number, in the traditional way, using the middle liners and the plastic film, the cost per pallet is around 7 euros. With our solution, is less than 1 euro. So it's a great reduction. It's even 7 times less. And the best thing is that that's in consumables. And of course, the customer has to acquire the equipment, but the investment is quite low. And it actually is so low that the return on investment, an average, is from 3 to 6 months. So, and making 12,000 pallets per year, it's okay, it's a good amount, but we have customers doing more than 15 pallets per year, per month. So that's a huge savings. We're talking about €1 million of savings with zero waste and fully stable pallets doing it, and you can even palletize faster. So the palletizing solution is it's a great benefit on return on investment, cost reduction, and it's paid in 3 months. So
yeah, and regarding the EcoStitch, it's complicated to say a saving in terms of euros, in terms of money, because all the different packaging lines are different and depends on many different and several factors. It depends on the number of guns, the number of modules that the customer has. It's very important also the quantity of the adhesive that the customer is using per year. But if we speak about the ROI, the return on investment, is with our experience, in most of the cases, is always between 4 months till 10, 12 months. So it's always less than 1 year, which is a very good return on investment. And yeah, as the palletizing solution, as Alfredo mentioned, it's very easy to recover the investment in both, right?
Yeah, and of course, the best for every customer will be to combine both solutions. The EcoStitch for closing the boxes, for example, and then our palletizing solution for making the pallets. So that's twice the savings. So in all of the packaging process, in all the packaging line. So yeah, it's something that we will be, of course, glad and willing to give you any customer any more detailed information on this. Okay.
Right.
So yeah, just contact us through the interpack.
Yeah, please visit our virtual tour. Yeah, please.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you both for sharing
so
that. Thank you both for sharing today what you would have been showing at Interpack. I'm really pleased I get to hear about this without sort of running about between all the stands in real life. I just
less tiring,
in the comfort of my chair.
Easy, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So Johannes, I'd love to hear about what we would have been seeing at Interpack from W. Müller too. So you serve packaging companies who produce bottles for the food and cosmetics industries. Have you seen much change in demand since the outbreak?
Yeah, what we have seen in the last weeks, starting, of course, there was a big demand in bottles for all sorts of disinfectants, for detergents and liquids in all terms, which really exploded in the demand. So this was by our clients which are producing these bottles, a big shift in their production, and we try to support them as much as we can. And of course, we only could do it via the online techniques which are available, but we also tried to speed up with this change in technology, and also are able to do troubleshooting and online services now via the online techniques. And this is something which drives the digital shift of our operation very fast. And I think this is a good, in the end, it helps to get it more common, all the usage of these online tools for the future, and some of it will stay for the future, and some will, of course, lower again. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I understand that you focus on using PCR material in blow molding. Can you tell me why you focus in this area in particular?
Yeah, of course. We want to support the production with the sustainability of material, and to take care about the resources. And it was very interesting to listen to Sophie and Tracy about their insights, because it's something we are, of course, thinking of, not now of the pandemic disease. We have done. We are thinking about sustainability, in special of plastic packaging, because it has been very hard under pressure in the last months. And I would say that the actual situation is helping us to see the positive aspects of a plastic bottle in these terms. But no question, we have to do everything to reduce the resources and to make it more sustainable in these terms. And there's one thing you can do is to use PCR, the post-consumer recycled material, and this is changing the way of production and the technical things. And maybe some historical things to know, that the usage of regrind from the own production is something which was always common in the blow molding industry. And also multi-layer technology, you need to use the PCR, is also something which was developed many years ago. What is new on the PCR is that you are now trying to get material from outside and from other productions and use them in your production. And this is a challenge we are facing, because it depends, the variation in the material, in the technical data of the materials is very high, and you have to cope with this in your production. And so what we do, or what you can do to use PCR, is that you are making a 3-layer production. So that means you are using the PCR in the middle layer, and you have inside, the inside layer is a virgin material. So the contact with the liquid or with the ingredients is with the virgin material. And on the outside, you have also virgin material, and of course with master batch, with color, that you have a nice shape and a nice bottle in the end. And typically what you do, you are using PCR in the middle layer of about 40 to 60%. So it's quite a lot amount of material which you can use. And for this, we are doing we are producing the head, so-called head, for the blow molding machine, which is making the parison for the production, and which is of course the most technological part of a blow molding machine. And additionally, when you use this 3-layer technology, which we call as a RICO 3 technology, you're also saving some of the master batch, because you only need to put it in the outer layer, which is only 10 to 15% in the end. And so this also supports the usage of this technology.
I think you've in part already answered my next question that I had for you, but what are your special specialities in this technology?
Yeah, the specialties we are offering is that we are also supporting our clients in when they want to change the standard normal production, which is monolayer or one material, to a PCR. We have a technical lab. We have lab machines where we can test the product in all terms. We can make test production, and so to set up the right production with the new bottle to have the same specifications for the packaging. And so we support our clients in these terms. And also, of course, in the end, we are producing the head or the new technology and also extrusion lines to change the machines to switch to PCR production.
Mm-hmm. And coming back to sort of the overall debate that we've been having today, obviously you focus on using a sustainable material. Have you had any issues within the supply chain of sourcing this at the moment?
Yeah, as also Sophie and Tracy already mentioned this topic, it's a pity that production is lacking of PCR material. So technology is there, but in the end you are having really big problems in getting the right material for your production. And so we are also taking the responsibility to get in contact with suppliers of PCR material and try to connect them with our clients to interfere together and to help them to use PCR, and which is one of our most of the most activities we are doing at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And in your opinion, how important is it to take a sustainable approach throughout the supply chain, especially when it comes to blow molding?
We heard this already, so we see it, and we have seen it already before, this thing as a very strategic thing to work with sustainability to reduce the resources we need for making packaging products. And this is our goal, to find solutions for the productions to reduce the usage of material and all resources you need for this production. Because we think that in a few years, you either have a solution or you are not on the business anymore, because time's changing, and we have now the experience of how fast they can change. And so we have to think about the new solutions and to develop them, and we have to take the money and the effort to find the new solutions for the future. Otherwise, we have to switch the business totally and make something else in the end.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you very much for sharing your insights with us today. So I'd like to go over now to, we've had some audience questions coming in throughout this session. First one I'd like to put to Tracy and Sophie again. How do you holistically design more sustainable packaging when the regulatory landscape around material choice, EPR and recycling infrastructure is very unclear? And this is from Sam Clark-Knowles, one of our audience today. I think you might still be on mute, Tracy.
Sorry.
Sorry, it's very unusual that you can't hear my voice. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say.
It was the same for me.
Sorry, it's probably worked in our favour. I'm not sure, Sophie. I think for me, I think it's really important that we define what sustainable means. We don't really tend to use the word sustainable very often, because only other than to sustain yourself in business, because I think that sustainable can be interpreted in so many different ways, and actually some of the policy and the regulation landscape is not driven towards things like zero waste and reuse, for example. It is mapped around circularity and disposability. If you look at the resource and waste strategy, and there's lots of circular economy language in there, but there's a very small mention of reuse, other than to sort of say that we don't know that much about reuse, which is great, to be honest. But actually, I think it's first of all, define what sustainable means to your business, to your brand, and then it's about mapping out the reason why we do a packaging strategy is about understanding what you're doing with your packaging and why. It can't just be technical, it can't just be environmental, it can't just be about the brand, and it can't be a fluffy approach. It needs to be absolutely future-proof and nailed in this day and age, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to stay open-minded. I know. I mean, it's already a lot. So the legal things out there, customers who tend to want something. There's a lot of pressure from different directions on there, and all say that's what is sustainability, and they try to define it for you. But actually, you first need to know what you are doing, and you need to know where because there is no wrong or right in terms of sustainability. It's just the way of the less damage, because whatever we do, we always will have an impact. That's just the nature of human being. It's about trying to find a way to reduce your impacts in a way that you can live with it, and know where you cannot do that. And that's about making a strategy. You have to think about, as Tracy said, what are you doing, what is the future of your business, and where will you go, and what you're looking at, and what will you try to put aside because you don't think that you have a risk there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you were saying earlier, Sophie, around future proofing. So it's about investing now to be proactive rather than reactive. And actually, while there's so much going on locally in the UK, for example, we've got 3 or 4 pretty major consultations that relate to packaging essentially and waste. And while we don't really know what's going to go on with them, there's going to be more delays going on based on the COVID situation. Having the right expertise means that you can still future-proof and make plans, as long as you're looking at some more broader goals, rather than looking at increasing the recycled content a little bit, or trying to have a little bit more collection of something that's not very easy to collect. You need to think broader and not too much into. We often, from a technical perspective, get caught up in the detail. It's really important to take a step back and actually understand the why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, it also could happen that in the end it means that you have to transform your business a little bit, and that's what a sustainability strategy tells you. It shows you the risks, and it shows you if your business can even be there in 10 years, or if you have to transform it a little bit and rethink it to be future proof. And that sustainability strategy is not just being according to any law which is out there, or consumers who want something specific to you. It's about what actually can I do in 10 years to be in the business still.
Yeah. And our next question is from Packaging Europe's very own Tim Sykes. Something that's troubling him around LCAs, in particular regarding the hugely important issue of carbon footprint, is a lack of benchmarking. With so many variables, it's easy to manipulate the results by setting the starting assumptions. And he asks, is it realistic to ask for harmonisation?
Actually, there is already, the European Commission is already in the run of trying to harmonize it. There is the PEF, the Product Environmental Footprint of the European Commission, which is actually doing exactly that one. It's a little bit a hard path to go, because there are so many, as you said, the methodology itself is has its downsides, let's put it that way. But actually, we are already on the path of aligning and trying to have one method and one comparability level in the end.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's like a lot of the different metrics, whether we're talking about carbon or water or waste, or even things like recyclability or compostability. It's also understanding the relevance of that standard, and essentially what it covers, and hopefully the fact that we'll all be aligning to that standard moving forward. So things like science-based targets, and in terms of that leadership space, I think that we've got hopefully some really interesting times ahead in terms of making commitments, but standards are absolutely key.
We've got a final question that's come in today. Apologies if I pronounce your name completely wrong. This is from Jürgen Dornheim, who asks, brand owners expect full traceability of material and its source as consumers and retailers expect such information more and more. Is such tracking data standardized, for example, PCR versus PIR?
That's a great question.
At the moment, I would say that not even PCR is already established in the industry very well, despite any tracking of material. There is, in these terms, I don't see any activities at the moment, because it's also technically very difficult to establish a correct tracking of the material, and even PCR, it's much more complex in the end to track everything. But no doubt we have to work on it, and we have to develop something like that. But we see what technically is possible in the end. This is what my comment to this.
I think for me, there's an analogy or a similarity in terms of FSC. Trying to prove that FSC or recycled content in board and fiber materials is recycled if it's FSC. There's always some kind of tension. So I think that moving forwards, wherever we can have an evidence base in terms of traceability, how we digitize that moving forward, I don't quite know. There's things like blockchain, etc. But absolutely, people will want to know more about where their materials come from, and it will in the future be an everyday thing that everybody just knows. But at the moment, we are at the very early stages. My opinion is that we're at the early stages of that when it comes to packaging. And as often somebody will make a claim and say a certain percentage, if we're doing an analysis, is we've had things come back that said that glasses have got 100% recycled content, and we're kind of questioning that, going, we think that's quite unlikely. So again, it's having that person in the process to kind of question and critically analyze whether or not the information that you're being given is actually suitable to be going into an analysis. So there's a lot of distrust in the packaging, in my experience, from brands and designers and people working in the packaging supply chain. There's a lot of distrust because people essentially know that they're prioritizing selling packaging over the environment, essentially. And while we completely understand that, it's really important to recognize that you will gain more trust by being very transparent and open about the journey that you're on. And if you don't know something, say so. It makes our lives easier, for sure, when you're trying to gather data. And it also makes the journey that your clients and your customers are on so much more honest and open moving forwards.
And because you're talking about transparency, I think that's really one of the key things here. If you're transparent and you can actually prove that you that you have recycled, and you can trace the packaging and you have recycled content in there, and you're able to show that, you also might have like a little you're a little in front of the others, right? So it's just in your favor if you can actually show that this is the case, and if you're not tricking anyone, because that's just leading to mistrust again. So as you said, Tracy.
And trying to avoid greenwash as well. I think that if you want to make a claim and people are jumping through hoops to make claims in terms of the leadership space, I don't know how much recycled content is really a leadership thing these days. But I think that the point is more that if you want to make a claim, you need to be very, you need to be very sure when you are going out public about something.
Yeah. It's getting more and more important that you are absolutely sure. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much to our audience who sent in all your questions today. It's really kind of shone some more light on this debate as well. And thank you to all our guest speakers who've joined us today. Thank you very much for your time. We hope this has been useful for all of our viewers, and you're able to take away some great insights from this virtual platform. We're eager to see how this discussion will have developed by the time we will hopefully be meeting up again next year at Interpack or kind of at the conferences once they start again. So thank you everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you as well.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Have a nice
We'll
week.
see you in February next year.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Just before we leave, I'd just like to say we've got another live week broadcast tomorrow, which will be at 12 o'clock Central European time. So don't miss out on the debate we're having tomorrow. And also our deadline for the Sustainability Awards closes this Friday, the 15th. There's still time to enter. So if you have something you're keen to enter, just head to the sustainabilityawards.com. And don't forget to subscribe to Packaging Europe via our website and on our YouTube channel. Thanks everyone for joining. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.